You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody. Returning to Katahdin, an Appalachian Trail dream. Have you ever dreamt of hiking the AT? Bruce Matson did, so we're going to follow him every step of the way. Hi, and welcome back to Returning to Katahdin, an Appalachian Trail Dream, sponsored by our friends at Trailtopia. It hardly seems possible, but we're up to episode number 22 of the show. But more importantly, Bruce is 5 weeks into his hike. Contact isn't always easy, yet he keeps managing to catch me near my computer. Not too sure if that says a good thing or a bad thing about me, and he's giving us some great updates about what it's like to be out there. He seems very much in the moment to me and often reflective of his journey so far. But before we speak to Bruce, I think it's time for dinner. Do you remember those cold, wet evenings on the trail when you pitched up at a shelter and there was nothing you would have rather had than a beautiful, hot, home-cooked meal? Well, apart from actually going home, you could try out one of the delicious meals from Trailtopia. Why not dig into their spectacular jambalaya with its authentic Creole flavour? Or how about their beef stew, which is loaded with beef, potatoes, carrots, mushrooms, corn, green beans and green bell pepper in a fantastic beef gravy. Go on, try them. Trust me, you'll love them. Trailtopia, the best of home cooking away from home. It wasn't until, I think it was Tuesday, that I spoke with Bruce, and he seemed quite literally full of the joys of an imminent spring. Here's Bruce. We are back on with Bruce. Hi, Bruce. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Good.
How about
and
yourself?
I'm always good because I'm sitting on my backside and not walking anywhere, so I'm fine. and you're moving along. You're now. I've just been checking where you are. You said you're in Erwin, Tennessee, which is, do you know, that's nearly 350 miles. Isn't that amazing?
It is hard to believe. Yeah. Someone from home asked, how many steps into the trip am I? Because I think we talked a little bit. The law firm is having a walking challenge, and they've got 20 teams, and they're all trying to put together steps based on my trip. So
I think you're between 600,000 and 700,000 steps then, on a quick calculation.
On a percentage basis, I figured out I have about 15% of the trail done, so it's about 785,000 steps, I think. So your number's pretty close, and I don't know if my math is right, but
well, I always remember going uphill, going about 6 inches per step, and I was thinking, there's no way this is 5 million steps. Because it needs to average about 2 to 2.5 feet per step to do 5 million steps on a 2,200 mile journey. I had a lot of time on my hands. I used to work stuff out like that, but you know. So you're in Miss Janet country, and when we did speak earlier, you mentioned that you haven't actually run into Miss Janet yet.
No, we were talking about that because we're in Erwin.
Yeah.
Miss Janet often travels with the bubble, and the suspicion is that the bubble's still a couple weeks behind me.
Right.
So it may be that she's down in Hiawassee and places like that right now.
Because you're making a pretty good pace, aren't you? And I'm wondering, I'm sure the bubble will catch you, or some of the bubble will catch you, not all of it, obviously.
I'm sure parts of it will. Yep.
Yeah. Are you starting to see more people coming up now?
You know, I don't know. I don't know if it's any particularly different. Everybody goes at their own pace, and I kind of slide in and out of some different bubbles from time to time. So I don't feel that there's a crowd yet, or there's people are worried about, I've got to get into town and get a bunk at the hostel because it's crowded. So, but there's certainly a acknowledgement that a lot of people have left in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and some of them, are putting in big miles, and will catch a lot of us.
Yeah. You still got plenty of times for solitude and plenty of times to be with people. I think one of the things that people realise when they get out there, even though millions touch the trail every year, you can still find lots and lots of times when you can be entirely by yourself and thoroughly enjoy it, can't you?
Oh yeah, I a couple of days ago I left with probably 10 or 12 people, and that's a big crowd for me. And of course, over the course of the morning, we spread out, and 4 or 5 of us ended up at a shelter and had an early lunch. One of the few times in the last month where we could actually sit outside and enjoy a lunch without having to move quickly. So there's certainly no crowds on the trail. Plenty of solitude. Some days I'll go and only see 2 or 3 people all day.
Nice. Don't you think that's a really lovely thing sometimes as well?
Yeah, and very recently I only saw 2 or 3, 4 people during the day, but when I rolled into the shelter, and I tend to be kind of an early starter, hike a long day, pretty steady. When I arrived, I was surprised to see there must have been 15, 18 people at the shelter and tenting all around, but they just were ahead of me, and so there is activity out there, but it's easy to be on your own if you want to.
Yeah. Have you got the hiker hunger yet?
No, I can't say that has kicked in. I'm still not eating that much.
Wow.
Part of it is the weather. Like today was nice. I think today was the warmest day I've hiked since the very first day with Cheryl on the approach trail. Wow. I think it got over 60 degrees for the first time in 30 days.
Is this the first signs of spring, do you think?
I hope so. And there are some, we were noting on the trail today some flowers and some buds popping. And I've been kind of waiting for that. I figured I could walk along as Earl Schaefer did, with spring for a little while, and it'll be fun to see spring develop. And we haven't had much, but we did see some signs of it today, and certainly the warmth, the sunshine, and the birds certainly seem to get out a lot more when it's a little more temperate.
Yeah, well, funny enough, you immediately reminded me there that you're walking through through a pretty barren sort of path, and suddenly you look to your side and you start seeing some flowers. And it's a really beautiful sight. You suddenly feel warmer from just seeing the flowers. And one of the things I always wish I'd done, I wish I'd learned more of what some of those flowers were. I had a lovely morning hiking with a lovely lady and her husband once, and she was telling me about all the flowers, and I just hadn't noticed them at all. I knew they were flowers, but I didn't know what was what. There are tons of different types of flower out there, so look out for those. You're going to love it. Yeah,
no, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I don't really know them by name or anything, but I feel like I'm going to enjoy seeing them pop up and develop as we're walking along.
Yeah, sure. So you've done 350 miles. You're into your 5th week. You're just over a month on the trail, aren't you? So
that's right.
What sort of, have you had highlights and have you had lowlights? I'm sure you've had both actually. So give me a low light. A low light that you remember.
Yeah, I guess a low could be the challenge. I don't really view those as necessarily low lights because they were interesting challenges, and in particular, I'm thinking about the 2 or 3 really bad, wintry, blustery, blizzard-like days.
Yes,
I think I would say a low point would have been a couple days ago. Pack felt heavy, couldn't get it comfortable. My lower back hurt a little bit. The big long climb, and the group in the shelter had raced out early in the morning. And I usually am an early riser and getting out the door, but the positioning of the shelters was such that people wanted to do this 19-mile day. Almost everybody in the shelter was planning to do this 19-mile day so they could get to Irwin a day earlier. And I looked at it and said, there's not a chance I'm going to try to do that. So I kind of let them go. And there's only one guy, sort of my vintage, left in camp. And it was kind of a lonely day. Everyone had taken off, didn't see anybody in the trail. And it was one of the few times where I was like, this isn't that fun. I'm a little lonely, and the shelter positions weren't very good. So I either was going to have a short day, which still didn't line things up well, and it was just wasn't a great day. And you got to learn to sort of pick yourself up from those things. But
Definitely,
I can't say I've had many of those. I really can't say. A low light would be 38 degrees and raining hard all day. Those are tough days.
Yes.
But there's something about the being out there and the challenge and feeling like you planned for these conditions that make a fair bit of reward when you get through it all. It's not pleasant when you're doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do it, 80% of the time, but it's tough, but you kind of knew that sometimes it'd be tough.
Yeah, just imagine 80% of the time it was pouring with rain. Just imagine that. Oh my God.
It would be really hard to keep up. And in some sense, the bitter cold has been like that. It's been unrelenting, and we've all commented about how we have very little time to prepare meals, to talk. And today was a good example. I stopped at a shelter with a couple people I knew, and we just took our time like we never do to just have lunch and catch up. I think as the weather warms up, we're going to spend more time, with a little more time in the morning for coffee and socializing, the same thing during the day and at the end of the day. So I think the time for being a little more social will increase. I'm
sure. I know for me that I think it's the same in so-called real life as well. There are just days when you just can't get started properly, can you? And I remember one particular day I was hiking. I started really well, about 4 or 5 miles in. I stopped for a break, which was a Snickers in those days. I sat down for Snickers, and it was as if the Snickers went straight to my feet and my legs, and my legs just went leaden. I just couldn't. For the rest of the day, I just couldn't do it. I think when you get days like that, you just recognise there are days like that, and you'd say, it's okay, it's going to be better tomorrow. And it nearly always was as well.
Yeah, fortunately, I haven't had too many. I've had a few days where it's like, this doesn't seem to be that much fun. It's a little gray, it's a little cold, and mostly what we're doing is completing a task for the day, and not necessarily enjoying the day.
Yeah.
But you got to just have the perspective that, things will change and there'll be other opportunities. And there's been lots of great days.
I say that leads us on to the other thing, which is highlights. What if you could pick out a couple of highlights? What would they be? Obviously, seeing Brooke, but apart from seeing Brooke,
it was certainly great to have Brooke visit. And some of the highlights is seeing. I think I overuse this word. This word iconic. You see the Blood Mountain Shelter, and you see Standing Bear, and you see Elmer's, and you see Hot Springs, and you see Fontana Dam. And for those of us, and certainly probably a lot of your listeners, we've seen these places in photographs and YouTube videos, and some of the highlights is just visiting these special places that are along the trail.
Sure.
In particular, I was blessed to have a perfect sunny day to go over Blood Mountain. Nice. I had a very clear, beautiful day, Klingman's Dome. While the snow has been very challenging from time to time, there's always a morning after, and the morning after is usually, after a storm. Often you have this beautiful weather, and to have the number of days that I've hiked through the woods with snow-covered hillsides has really been a highlight. It's been absolutely beautiful.
I'm sure.
So there is that sort of morning after the blizzard is beautiful. Now I've missed I've been a little disappointed. I went over Max Patch in blizzard-like conditions and didn't see anything.
That's a shame. That's the importance, Bruce. I always say, all my presentations I've done, I always say, you've got to take the views when they're there. If it's a little couple of 100-yard side trail, really, just take that view. If you've got a lovely sunny day, see all the ones you can, because as you say, you pass over Max Patch, one of my favourite spots of all. It was a beautiful, beautiful place, and you just didn't see it, which is a real shame.
Yeah, it's a real shame. And yesterday I was on Big Bald, and I love Big Bald. It's similar to Match Packs, and it was a very interesting hike. But again, the clouds had kind of covered in, and I could see how neat a place it was, but I didn't get the views. And then late in the afternoon, the sun finally came out, but I was long down the mountain.
Yeah. Now, earlier on when we spoke, I did warn you that the hike down into Irwin seems to be endless. What was it like for you?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these hikes down into the gaps are long. They take on a characteristic. You get used to them now, how they just switch back. And sometimes you say, really, did I only go a half a mile? It seems like I just walked 3 miles. I've been switching back and forth. But, if you're up there 4,000 or 5,000 feet, I mean, Big Bald was over 5,500 feet yesterday. And if you're going to come down to 1,000 feet, you got to come down and down and down. And unless you're going to jump, you got to get a trail to bring you down. And but you're right. Those, they can be almost endless because you feel like, okay, I've come down the mountain, I'm ready to go into town or whatever it is. And it's just endless in terms of the switchbacks until they get you down to the road or wherever.
Now, are you leaving Irwin tomorrow?
Yes.
Yes. Well, you've got I think it's called Curly Maple Shelter. It's only about 5 miles. It's uphill. And that's where, I hope they've still got it there. They have the Rockies Pizza Challenge and it's
is that where that is?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I feel, Bruce, you need to be running down the mountain again, getting 24, 2 large pizzas and 24 beers. These youngsters did it. They did it in 2 hours 57, going down the mountain and back up with 4 pizzas and 48 beers. It was just amazing. One of the highlights the whole trail.
Did they get the pizza from Irwin?
They came down from Curly Maple. They run all the way down. They then have to, I think they could hitch a lift into town to Rocky's Pizza, and they've got beers there and the pizzas, and head straight back up and run up the mountain. Wow. Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Well, I'm not sure this 60-year-old body's going to be able to manage that.
Good thinking.
I'm planning to hike a little farther than that tomorrow.
Oh, are you? Okay. All right. Okay. All right, mate. Well, great to catch up with you again. I'm glad you're well. I'm glad spring's coming through. And I'm sure we'll talk again before the end of the week. But enjoy your stay in Irwin. And unfortunately, you won't see Miss Janet, but hopefully you're going to catch up with her sometime on the trail. Always worth meeting Miss Janet, one of the Trail Legends. And so we'll catch up later in the week.
Good talking to you as always, Steve.
Okay, matey. Take it easy. Bye.
All right. Cheers.
So, you're seeing a few flowers. I love that. When you start at Springer, and I started about a week before the end of March, the forest is bare, stark and cold with the rotting leaves from the previous fall underfoot, crunching as you walk on them. Then you get a bit of sunshine, then a little bit more. Suddenly, there they are. The flowers that have been hiding away in plain sight come out to play. It really does lift your heart. Sort of perversely, I'm glad that Bruce is having the odd bad day. I think you need these tricky days to put the great days into some sort of context. Anybody who says that hiking the Appalachian Trail, or any other long-distance trail for that matter, is one joy-filled day after another is simply lying to you. Sometimes it really sucks out there. But taken as a whole, there's a feeling of achievement to have survived those sucky days, and those sweet days taste even sweeter. It's a shame that the weather is obliterating some of the great views, but I guess that leaving in February would guarantee that he'd miss some of them. He wanted to hike in snow. He certainly had the chance to do that. Before we get back with Bruce, I wanted to share some news with you. You can listen to this podcast in the normal place, but you can now listen to all the Hiking Radio Network shows on our brand new, made by me, website. There is this show, of course, my Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail show, and 2 new ones. The Trail Dames podcast is primarily for women, and this show is hosted by the lovely Anna Huthmaker. Anna started the Trail Dames organisation several years ago after she did 700 miles on the Appalachian Trail and realised that there weren't too many women who looked like her. The organisation is a supportive group of women adventurers with over 8,000 members across the country. I hope that some of you give it a listen. It's monthly, and Anna's first show is currently available. We also have Dixie Live on the Continental Divide Trail. This is a subscription show at $4 a month, and I'll be speaking with Jessica Dixie Mills twice a week as she makes her attempt to complete the Triple Crown. Dixie is super popular, and these will be really up-to-the-minute chats with this very chatty woman. She's a lot of fun. You can find all these shows at hikingradionetwork.com, and you'll see all 4 of them listed on the homepage. Pick one, click it, and listen to it. I hope to see some of you there. Now, it wasn't until Sunday, or yesterday if you're listening on the day that this show's published, that Bruce and I were able to talk again. I started out with a complete misunderstanding on my part. Here's Bruce. Well, it's Sunday morning, and we are back on with Bruce. We had a bit of a few connection issues, but we're okay now. Hi, Bruce. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks. Good morning.
You sound quite relaxed. Are you not hiking right now then?
I am. So I came into Carvers Gap, the Roan Highlands, yesterday afternoon, and I got shuttled into Roan Mountain bed and breakfast. So I'm taking that was yesterday. So I wanted to be in town for Easter Sunday. So I'm taking the day off and be heading to church in a little bit, and then have a quiet afternoon.
Have you got any church clothes? I can't imagine you have.
I do. They're the ones I wore yesterday and got laundered last night.
I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. Carvers Gap, that's where I actually lost. My wife and I couldn't find each other. We just had a terrible time trying to meet up at Carvers Gap. But I promise you've got the most beautiful hike going forward. Over, I can't remember the name of it now. It's a beautiful board. I just absolutely loved it up there. And when you get back, you can go to I think it's the Mountain Harbour Bed and Breakfast, which is the best breakfast I've ever eaten in my life anywhere. So you might want to...
it's got that reputation. Now that where I'm at is on the other side of town. Mountain Harbor is closer to the trail, but where I'm staying is just like 4 miles down the road.
All right. Okay. Cool. And I saw overnight a Facebook post, and you posted at 10 p.m. and you said that you were still hiking at 10 p.m. Is that right?
No. I meant I hadn't. That was last night. I was just I had realized that I hadn't sent much stuff out on Instagram,
right.
And I'm actually an Oboe's ambassador, and I've got a small obligation to write a couple articles and do a little Instagram posting, and I've been a little behind on that. So since I had a beautiful bedroom and quiet time, and I was trying to catch up, and just some of my friends on Facebook, I put up a couple photos up there because I've been a little behind on that.
All right. I hope Cheryl didn't think you were hiking at night at 10 o'clock, because that's exactly what I thought.
I was just kind of meaning that, hey, I've been gone for a month, but I'm still hiking.
Yeah. Have you done any night hiking at all?
Have not. I'm not
Nor
against it. I just haven't had any particular need or desire. And as you know, we've had pretty cold weather for the last 30 days, and adding night hiking to the bill of fare isn't that attractive.
Yeah, well, I know that I had enough trouble standing up in the daytime, so God knows what it'd be like if I tried to hike at nighttime. I'd be a shambles. And the other picture you posted, which I loved, was the entry into that really dark spruce forest on the top of, is it Unaka Mountain, which is before.
Yeah, we had quite a conversation a couple nights ago around the shelter about how to pronounce that. So,
all right.
A local told us if you want to sound like a local, it's Unaka. Everyone was insisting it was Unaka or something like that, but apparently, for what it's worth, I think it's Unaka. And I think that's kind of well known for this spruce forest, and it was such a horrendous day.
Oh, God.
I couldn't take many pictures because they weren't very attractive, and I couldn't take many pictures because I didn't want to stop in the cold rain.
I bet.
But when I looked at that picture, trying to decide what I might post last night, I said, this looks kind of very formidable. It's like, that quote I used actually from The Wizard of Oz, I'd turn back if I were you. It's when Dorothy is going to the castle and the monkeys are attacking her. There's a sign that says, "I'd turn back if I were you." So I was trying to be a little bit funny because doesn't it look a little formidable, that one little white blaze and all the darkness around?
I remember thinking about it. I believe I actually wrote about it in my book that, you really need those white blazes there because there are so many. That's just such a dark forest in there, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
I loved it. I thought it was actually so dramatic. I really did.
Yeah, it still was pretty good. And the only benefit of being in that forest was it's so dense that the rain didn't bother you for about 10 or 15 minutes.
Nice. And I was wondering this actually, because it's been so cold and you really have had some tough cold weather, haven't you? Are you giving yourself enough breaks during the day, or do you, because of the heat of the cold, do you have to keep walking pretty much all day long?
You have to keep walking. You just can't break. And when you break to eat for 10 minutes, your body chills down, your hands get frozen, and then you hike for 20 minutes just to get your hands back to a reasonable temperature. So unless yesterday was a wonderful day, and I was sitting around with a couple other guys having breakfast in this gap before we climbed up to Cloudland, right, in the high Carvers Gap area.
Uh-huh.
And we were noting the last 2 days how pleasant it is to be able to sit around for 30 minutes and just chat and have lunch together. And it's kind of weird. So 2 days ago, we had the hottest day of the whole trip.
Uh-huh.
3 days ago. 2 days ago was Unaka Forest, and that was brutal cold rain. And then yesterday was just the loveliest day you can imagine.
It just changes so much and so quickly, doesn't it? And it's important not to get called out as well. You don't want to go to the top of a board with thunder and lightning smacking all around you, do you? Either. You've got to plan these things.
Yeah, hiking into hot springs, we said, hey, maybe spring has sprung. And then hiking out of Irwin, we had a particularly nice day and saw our first snakes.
All right.
And that was kind of a sign of spring. And then we got slapped in the face during this day climbing Unaka Mountain.
Oh, dear. And you passed over that place just before Unaka Mountain, if I remember, called Beauty Spot Gap, or Beauty Spot, which was literally Beauty Spot for a good reason. And I think you can reach it by car as well, but it's a lovely spot to look out across the countryside. Do you remember that?
Oh, very much so. So that was 3 days ago. We had a lovely hiking day. That was the day out of Irwin. But a 13-mile day gets you to the top of Beauty Spot.
Yeah.
We had a whole gang of people. We had a beautiful day. We camped right over the Beauty Spot. We must have had 8 or 10 tents. We had the best campfire I've had of the whole trip. And we all hiked back up to the Beauty Spot for the sunset. Unfortunately, the clouds did come in and kind of ruin the sunset. But earlier in the day, when we were climbing Beauty Spot, it was pretty. And you're right, it earns its name. It's a beautiful spot. And for me, it was, I think, the first large grassy bald that I was on when I actually had good views.
Oh, really? Oh, aren't they great from there? And if you get decent weather, I tell you, I really hope you get great weather out of Carvers Gap. So I just be looking at the map. It's Little Hump Mountain and Hump Mountain you've got to go over. And that's absolutely glorious up there. Some of the best hiking I had. It was one of my best days of all, hiking on the trail, was out of Carvers Gap. It was just absolutely glorious. You're going to love it.
I've had many people tell me the exact same thing. So it's cool. A highlight, apparently.
And you passed the other day also the Roan High Knob shelter, which is, I think, the highest shelter at about 6,000 feet, something like that, 5,500, 6,000 feet. Did you go in there at all? Because it's an enclosed shelter.
Yeah, I did not. I was kind of going down to Carvers Gap to meet a shuttle, and I just decided it was actually very icy right around there.
Right.
Believe it or not, there was still ice. And I will say that 2-mile hike down from the old Cloudland hotel site, which is neat. That's a great little mini ball itself. That road I just didn't like it. I had such a great hike yesterday, but the last 2 miles was on this old road.
That's right.
And there's so many football and baseball and golf ball sized rocks that it's just constantly twisting your ankles and feet and bumping your toes. And 2 miles of that wasn't much fun. Plus throw in running water, snow, and remnant ice. It was not a great finish to a great day, but it was a beautiful day, beautiful hike. The profile on AWOL is a very steep hike, but I'll tell you, the grading and the foot tread was just a wonderful quality. It was for a 3-hour uphill climb. It was actually a very pleasant day.
Yeah, I'm sure. It was absolutely pouring with rain the day I went up Roanoke. But you know what? It was part of it. And I went into the shelter, and a bunch of the youngsters, a whole lot of youngsters were having a 0 day in that shelter. And to say the least, the air was very fragrant within there. And the smoke, it was a fragrant smoke, I think it was. I thought, I can't stay in here at all. This isn't going to work for me. So I left it. Did you make your plan, by the way, for the Masters next Sunday? Where do you think you're going to be to go and watch it?
You know, I'm a lucky guy, as you know. I have a room reserved with a television set in Damascus.
Oh, perfect. Absolutely perfect. You're going to be in Damascus next Sunday. Wow.
Yeah. Can you believe that? I'll be in Virginia in a week.
Yeah. Trust me, you'll be take you about another month to get out of it. It's over 550 miles.
That's okay. Virginia's home. I'll have a lot of trail magic and friends.
Yeah. And you sent me a picture of you and my buddy Vagabond Jack. That was lovely to see. It really was. How is he? How is the old boy?
I knew you were waiting for that moment, and I pulled up to this Clyde Smith shelter, and the two guys there I didn't know, and I introduced myself, and Jack said, "Well, we've got a mutual friend." I said, "You're Vagabond Jack." So he was delightful. We had dinner together, and we saw each other the next morning, and I was lucky. I didn't have much coverage because I couldn't call home that night, but there must have been just enough coverage that I was a little surprised you actually got the photo because the coverage was so bad. But I was glad you could see that I'd finally caught up with Jack.
Well, I'm actually going to put that picture in the show notes because you look like you've lost a ton of weight already. Maybe you haven't, but you look like you have.
Yeah, I probably have.
Can you tell from your pants?
My pants are ridiculous. I have to keep cinching them. I look like a little Tom Sawyer or something with a rope around my britches. But I feel good. I sent Cheryl a picture last night. I said, "Here, look at this one. I think I look thin in this picture." She's like, "Oh my, you really do." She's not that she was worried about it, like maybe Diane was for you. But
terribly. Yeah.
My guess is I've lost 25 pounds in 33 days.
And you feel better for it?
Yeah, I have to tell you, Steve, I feel really good.
Fantastic.
I think my town visits have been valuable because, we got that Mike Tyson punch in the face pretty good the last 30 days. And I've had a couple of days where I've really wondered how much fun I was having. I'll tell you, just 2 days ago, that Unaka Mountain day was a really miserable day. And coming off of Unaka Mountain was another one of these trails that was nothing but rocks and running water, and it went on forever.
Remember it well. Yeah.
So getting in town once in a while really helps your spirits, and as you know, the mental side of this is more important than anything. So I'm in a really good place, really excited and pleased that we have conquered some of the cold and snow, and been really with some great people the last 3 or 4 days having fun, and I'm in a really good spot. Looking forward to so as you know, the serendipity sometimes of running into people you think have long left you.
Oh, totally.
Show up like a bad penny, right? So a couple guys who I really enjoyed being with for the last 30 days, I really thought I had lost them, and for different reasons, I got a text this morning from this guy who I've been with quite a bit, but he took off, and he texted me when he was at Over Mountain and I was at Clyde Smith, 2 days apart. And now we have plans to leave 19E the same morning. So these things just happen, and you keep running into people. And it's been a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun.
I'm glad you're keeping at it. You know, the whole thing, that the serendipity of the trail is one of the things that always struck me. I saw a guy called Sherpa back at the Smokies. I saw him 1,500 miles later. I didn't see him once in the interim, but I saw him 1,500 miles later, which was just amazing. Well, look, great to catch up with you. Really pleased you're well, and I just hope the weather changes for you and it starts getting better and better, because now you're really going to get into it. It's got to. Yeah, it's just got to. You're right.
Good news is 3 of the last 4 days have been very pleasant. So I think we're getting a change.
Okay, mate. All right. Well, good talk to you again, and I'll catch up with you soon. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Cheers.
Take it easy. Bye. Do you know what? I forgot to ask a question from a listener. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, though. I'm going to ask Troutopia to send my buddy Vagabond Jack a couple of their meals to an address a little down the road from where he currently is. Jack, if you're listening, text me where you're going to be and when. Thanks, mate. I tell you, talking with Bruce about those places that he mentioned brought back some wonderful memories for me. For my Diane, she'll shudder at the mention of Carvers Gap, but I loved all the hiking around there. And look at the picture of the show notes if it's available where you're listening. Bruce looks so much thinner than he did. He says he's lost 25 pounds in 33 days. If you've ever doubted the energy required to get this done, just think of that. Even Marie Osmond on Weight Watchers didn't do that well. Still, our boy feels good about it, and he's in a great place in his mind. He's even managed to work out where he'll be watching the Masters next Sunday. Now that is planning. Bruce and I will see you next week.